If you have money sitting in a savings account right now, whether it is a few $1,000s or a few 100,000, this video is for you. Because there are things happening inside that account quietly every single month that most retirees never think to look at. And some of those things are costing you real money. Not because you did anything wrong, not because the bank is cheating you, but because the rules around savings accounts in retirement work differently than most people realize. And when you are living on a fixed income, those differences matter more than ever. Here's what I want you to think about for the next few minutes. Your savings account is not just a place to store money. In retirement, it is a financial tool. And like any tool, the way you use it or misuse it determines whether it helps you or quietly works against you. Today, we are going to go through the most important things every retiree with a savings account needs to understand right now. We will cover interest rates, taxes, insurance limits, inflation, and a few things that almost nobody talks about but absolutely should. Stay with us through the end. What you hear in the last section could be the most valuable part of all. Let us begin with something that sounds simple but is anything but. Most people assume that having money in a savings account means their money is safe, growing, and working for them. And in the most basic sense, that is true. The money is there. The bank is not going to lose it. But safe and growing are two very different things, and in retirement, confusing them can slowly drain your financial security in ways that are nearly invisible until the damage is already done. To understand what I mean, let me tell you about Harold. Harold was 71 years old, a retired electrician from Ohio, and proud of the fact that he had saved his entire life. He had spent 40 years putting money away, never overspending, always being careful. When he retired at 68, he had about $240,000 in savings, split between a regular savings account at his local bank and a checking account at the same branch. He trusted that bank. He had banked there for 30 years. His father had banked there. It felt like home. Harold's Social Security covered most of his monthly expenses, so he mostly left his savings alone. He glanced at his statement every few months, saw the balance was about the same, and felt comfortable. He figured the interest he was earning was just a bonus. Small, sure, but better than nothing. What Harold did not realize, not until his nephew, a financial planner, sat down with him one afternoon, was that his regular savings account was earning just 0.38% per year. At that rate, on his balance of $240,000, Harold was earning less than $1,000 in interest annually. Meanwhile, inflation over those years had been running considerably higher than that. In real terms, his money was losing value every single month. It was sitting still while everything around it got more expensive. His nephew showed him that by moving the bulk of that savings to a high-yield savings account, accounts that were paying up to 4 and 5% annually as of 2026, Harold could be earning $10,000 or more in interest each year on the same balance. The account would still be FDIC insured. He could still access the money whenever he needed it. Nothing about his day-to-day life would have to change. Harold was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something his nephew never forgot. He said, "Nobody ever told me there was a difference." That sentence right there is the reason we are having this conversation today. Because Harold is not unusual. Millions of American retirees have their savings parked in traditional bank accounts earning a fraction of what they could be earning. Not because of bad luck, not because of bad planning, but simply because nobody ever told them there was a difference. So let us fix that right now. The national average interest rate for a regular savings account is currently sitting around 0.38 to 0.40%. That is not a typo, less than half of 1%. Meanwhile, many high-yield savings accounts at online banks and credit unions are paying anywhere from 4 to 5% on the same deposits. Both types of accounts are federally insured. Both give you full access to your money. The only real difference is the interest rate, and that difference on a meaningful savings balance is thousands of dollars a year. Now, some people hear the words online bank and they hesitate. That is understandable. If you have spent decades walking into a branch, talking to a real person, and handing over a check, the idea of an internet-based bank can feel uncomfortable. But here's the important thing to understand. Online banks are subject to the same federal regulations as traditional banks. And if they are FDIC insured, which most reputable ones are, your money is protected up to the standard limit, just like it would be at any bank in your town. That brings us to the second thing every retiree needs to understand about savings accounts: FDIC insurance. Because a lot of people think they are fully protected when they are not, and that misunderstanding can leave a significant portion of their life savings exposed. FDIC insurance covers up to $250,000 per depositor, per ownership category, per insured bank. Let me break that down because those words matter. Per depositor means each individual person. Per ownership category means the type of account. A single account is treated differently from a joint account. And per insured bank means each bank separately. So if you have more than $250,000 sitting in a single savings account in your name alone at one bank, everything above that limit is not insured. If something happened to that bank, that money above the limit could be at risk. Now, bank failures are rare, but they do happen. And for a retiree who has spent 40 years building that savings balance, the idea of losing any of it because of a technicality is unacceptable. Here is what many retirees do not realize. You can maximize your FDIC protection in ways that are simple and legal. A joint account, one held with your spouse, is insured separately from your individual account, up to $250,000 per co-owner. So a married couple with a joint savings account and individual accounts could be covered for significantly more than $250,000 at the same bank. If your savings exceed these limits, spreading money across multiple FDIC-insured institutions is another clean solution. If you have significant savings and you are not completely sure how your accounts are structured, this is worth checking. You can use the FDIC's free online tool called EDIE, the Electronic Deposit Insurance Estimator, at fdic.gov to see exactly how your accounts are covered. It takes just a few minutes and gives you a clear answer. Now, let us move on because there is a third issue with savings accounts in retirement that catches even smart, careful people completely off guard: taxes. Most people know in a general way that interest income is taxable. But what many retirees do not fully appreciate is the ripple effect that savings account interest can have on their entire financial picture in retirement. It is not just the interest itself being taxed, it is what that interest does to everything else. Here is how it works. Every dollar of interest your savings account earns is counted as ordinary income by the IRS. It is taxed at the same rate as your wages, your pension, or your retirement account withdrawals. But the issue does not stop there. In retirement, your total income from all sources determines a number called your provisional income, which is used to calculate how much of your Social Security benefit is subject to federal income tax. If your provisional income exceeds certain thresholds, up to 50% of your Social Security benefit can become taxable. If it exceeds the higher threshold, up to 85% of your benefit can be taxed. This means that the interest your savings account earns is not just adding income to your tax return, it is potentially pushing other income, specifically your Social Security, into taxable territory. A retiree who earns several $1,000s more in savings interest than they expected may suddenly find that a larger share of their Social Security benefit is now taxable. The net result can be a tax bill that is higher than they ever anticipated. There is another layer to this as well, and it connects to something we discussed in a previous video. Medicare Part B and Part D premiums are tied to your income from 2 years prior. This is the IRMAA surcharge, the income-related monthly adjustment amount. If your income in 2024 was above certain thresholds, you are paying higher Medicare premiums right now in 2026. And if your savings account interest pushed your income over one of those thresholds 2 years ago, it may be part of why your Medicare premiums increased without any obvious explanation. This is the hidden cost of savings account interest that almost nobody talks about. It is not that earning interest is bad. It is that if you are not aware of these connections, you can make perfectly reasonable financial decisions that create unintended tax and Medicare consequences. So what do you do about it? The answer is not to stop saving or to earn less interest. The answer is to be aware, to plan ahead, and when possible, to work with a tax professional or financial advisor who understands how retirement income streams interact with each other. There are strategies available, including positioning some savings in tax-advantaged accounts that can help manage this exposure. But the first step is simply knowing that this connection exists. Now I want to take a moment to talk about something that might be the most emotionally difficult point in this entire video, because it gets to the heart of a deeply human tendency, one that makes complete sense but can quietly put a retirement at risk over time: keeping too much money in savings. Let me say that again because it sounds counterintuitive. Keeping too much money in a savings account can be a problem in retirement. Not because the account is unsafe, not because the bank is doing anything wrong, but because of inflation. Inflation is the force that makes everything more expensive over time. Groceries, medications, utilities, insurance, everything. And if your savings are earning less than the rate of inflation, or even just barely keeping pace with it, your purchasing power is shrinking year by year, even when your account balance looks the same. Think about what things cost 20 years ago compared to today. That gap is inflation at work. And for a retiree who is 70 years old today, with a life expectancy that could realistically extend to 85 or 90, that is 15 to 20 more years of inflation ahead. If your savings are locked in a low-yield account and not growing meaningfully, the buying power of that money in 15 years will be considerably less than it is today. The point is not to take unnecessary risks with money you cannot afford to lose. The point is to recognize that pure cash savings, while comfortable and familiar, is not a complete retirement strategy on its own. A well-designed retirement income plan typically involves having enough liquid savings for short-term needs and emergencies, while making sure the rest of your money is working hard enough to keep pace with, and ideally outpace, inflation over time. This is exactly where the story of Beverly becomes important. Beverly was 69 years old, a retired school librarian from North Carolina. She had a pension, Social Security, and a savings account with a little over $90,000 in it, money she had saved over her entire career and had always treated as her safety net. After her husband passed away, Beverly became the sole manager of their finances for the first time in her life. She was careful. She did not want to make mistakes. She kept everything in savings because it felt safe. She liked being able to see the money sitting there, available, protected. But by the time Beverly turned 72, she was starting to feel the pressure. Her grocery bills had gone up, her prescriptions had gotten more expensive, her utility bills were higher. She had not changed her lifestyle at all, but her money was not going as far as it used to. When her daughter's friend, a financial planner, reviewed her situation, the problem became clear. Beverly's savings account was earning 0.42%. At that rate, her $90,000 was generating less than $400 a year in interest. Meanwhile, inflation had been quietly eroding its real value. The account balance had barely moved in 4 years. But in terms of what that money could actually buy, it was meaningfully less. Beverly had not done anything wrong. She had been cautious, disciplined, and responsible. But she had unknowingly put herself in a position where her safety net was slowly shrinking without any visible warning. With guidance, Beverly moved a portion of her savings into a high-yield savings account, keeping a comfortable liquid cushion, and worked with the planner to position the rest in a way that had more potential to grow over the long term. She did not take wild risks. She made measured adjustments, but those adjustments changed her trajectory. The lesson from Beverly's story is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is the kind of lesson that only reveals itself over years, and that is exactly what makes it so important to understand now rather than later. Let us come back to something practical, because everything we have covered so far points to a few clear actions you can take right now. The first is to look up the interest rate on your current savings account, right now, today. If it is below 1%, you are almost certainly not getting what you could be getting. Rates on high-yield savings accounts at many reputable FDIC-insured institutions are currently in the 4 to 5% range. That is not a small difference. On $100,000, the gap between 0.38% and 4.5% is over $4,000 a year. The second is to look at how your accounts are titled and how they are structured at your bank. Make sure you understand your FDIC coverage. Use the estimator at fdic.gov if you are not sure. If you have more than $250,000 at one institution in your name alone, it is worth understanding whether all of it is insured. The third is to sit down, ideally with a tax professional or someone who specializes in retirement income, and look at how your savings account interest is interacting with your other income. Find out how it is affecting your taxable Social Security. Find out if it could be affecting your Medicare premiums in future years. This is not complicated once someone walks you through it, but it requires looking at your full income picture, not just individual accounts in isolation. And the fourth, the one that Beverly's story drives home, is to think honestly about whether your savings are keeping pace with inflation. This does not require making risky investments. It requires being aware that low-yield cash savings, while comfortable, are not neutral. They are slowly losing ground if inflation is running ahead of them. There is one more thing I want to mention before we reach the final part of today's video. It is something that many retirees do not think to ask about when they walk into a bank, and it may be the simplest thing of all. When you opened your savings account, were you offered the highest available interest rate or just the standard one? Many banks offer tiered rates, promotional rates, and relationship rates that customers never learn about unless they specifically ask. And many banks have changed their rate structures significantly over the past few years as interest rates have moved. There is nothing wrong with walking into your bank and simply saying, "What is the best interest rate you currently offer on savings accounts? What would it take for me to qualify for a higher tier? Is there a money market account or other product that would earn me more while still keeping my money accessible and fully insured?" You are a long-standing customer. You have earned the right to ask. We have covered a lot today, and I want to take just a moment to bring it all together, because the big picture here is more important than any single point we discussed. Your savings account is not just a passive container for your money. In retirement, it is an active part of your financial life. The rate it earns affects your income. That income affects your taxes. Those taxes affect how much of your Social Security you keep. The purchasing power of your balance affects how long your money can support you. And whether or not your deposits are properly insured affects how protected you truly are. None of these things are difficult to understand. None of them require a finance degree. But they are also the kinds of things that are easy to overlook when life is busy, when you trust your bank, and when your account balance looks roughly the same from month to month. Harold thought his money was working hard because it was safe. Beverly thought she was being responsible because she was being cautious. Both of them were doing their best. They just needed a clearer picture of what was actually happening. You now have that clearer picture. So here's your action plan for this week. Check your savings account interest rate. Verify your FDIC coverage. Ask a tax professional how your interest income interacts with your Social Security and Medicare costs. Think honestly about whether your savings are keeping up with inflation. And do not be afraid to ask your bank for a better rate or explore a high-yield savings account that could do more for your money while keeping it just as safe. These are not big, dramatic moves. They are smart, practical steps that could add up to thousands of dollars in your pocket over the coming years. Money you have already earned. Money you deserve to keep working as hard as possible for you. If this video helped you see your savings account in a new light, please share it with someone you care about. A spouse, a sibling, a friend who is retired or getting close. They may benefit from hearing this just as much as you did. Thank you for watching. Take good care of yourself. Your retirement deserves nothing less.